Good.
Okay, so the stream is live. I'm going to share my screen on YouTube. Okay, and there we go. So yeah, now we're live on YouTube. So I think that's a good place to start in terms of like if you guys could just, you literally can go turn on YouTube and just leave it on. You can mute it, or maybe I don't know, but David's in charge of
Don't
those.
mute it.
What?
Don't mute it. You can leave it on. Don't mute it.
So then you mute.
Turn the volume all the way down.
There
If you want to mute it, turn the volume all the way down.
Well, you could turn on captions, and then you're getting all the.
That works.
So you'll figure it out. But yeah, we're getting it going. All right. So, but yeah, no, Dr. Vogel, if you could talk about your game stuff, maybe share your screen and just kind of go over it. But if you're not ready for that, that's totally fine. Don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit about. It's not really too wild. I have not too much time at the moment to really finish stuff. I think I've taken same ideas as you do. Is just okay, get something run and see if it's producing something, and then do the finalization. Maybe even when the better models coming down. And just help us doing this. So what I try to do is getting up a wizard that just helps you on coding up any game you want. And the wizard should just guide you through either maybe using the chat history from ChatGPT that you can download and put into the rack, or just start from scratch with anything the LLM you are using is able to give you a generation. And then the DSPy version of signatures, I think I took your from the pipeline. There is, I think I found the only code from you that is generating signatures from dynamically. Yeah. Maybe you remember.
Yeah, I have that was actually some of the first stuff that I did. I was just putting the show and tell link to the DSPy group. Just to like kind of go way back to when I first got DSPy, the first thing that I did was create structured text with Pydantic, but then created structured Pydantic models for signatures to then create signatures. The thing that happened though is I ended up writing the DSL, and so the DSL kind of replaces the need for that. But in terms of doing things with the code, type predictors are also pretty good. The Quen model by let me show this so I'm not talking about it. I'll share my screen just to give some context on that. All right. So now I'm sharing my screen on, I should be sharing my screen. Yeah. Okay, cool. So
yes,
when we go to Olama, and we need to go to Olama. Okay. There's some phone numbers if you want to call some people.
I was going to say, let's try and not show API keys this time.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like Seth Godin says, the problem isn't people stealing our stuff. It's that we don't have enough people stealing our stuff. So I would love to have the problem where there's too many hackers all trying to get in and do all that stuff. We'll deal with those problems when we get there. But so the Quen model, Quen 2, is actually the best model overall that I've tested. I use the 7 billion, very, very fast, has some really, really good results, does a whole bunch of languages. One of the big things about the 7B is it also has a context length of 128K. I haven't seen any other models at the 7 billion mark that can do that big a window. One of the things is that I'm running for people that want to know the stats. I know sometimes people on Twitch want to know that. I'm running an Apple M3 Mac with 48 gigs of memory, 30 CPU cores, 40 GPU cores. I cannot run 72 billion models on my laptop. You have to have the 128 megabytes to do that. So this is pretty much maxing out where I can go, and yeah, experiment with this. It's got some stats. I don't think the 7 billion is too far off from the 72, but that's just a personal preference kind of thing. So cool.
I think that's exactly where I also try to help you changing a little bit on the code, because I also hopped into I think it's in precise the instruction model, because the instruct model is better in terms of coding. Found out in another repo on my side that you can get to great results with the Qwen2 instruct. And by the way, you have to, so in my testing, you have to have the chance to modify also the temperature, because I figured out the temperature getting down to mostly to 0 is giving you better results. So that's why I also have a change request there for setting the temperature too.
Yeah, I merged that already. So I'm gonna just pull your changes in so that we have that. So yeah, let me just go quick through the signature renderer. Yeah, signature renderer and factory. So this is, if we look at the Git show history. Yeah, so February, I first created this stuff. So basically, like, you have your input template, output template, and then the signature itself. So this is actually a signature that can get sent. So you have the class name, instructions, input, output fields. This will create the model type. Then we have these typed template is my own framework. That's pretty dope. One day, but it's really good for rendering stuff. And then, yeah, generate the signature from a prompt. And then we have the factory, which is actually the exact same code, but a little bit more complex. So I don't know which one came first, but we could probably check that later.
But yeah, I think this is the one I took because there's the only thing where you have a signature dynamically generated, I guess, for the DSL. This one or a similar one. Yeah. Because I was looking for in principle, the signature, how to create a signature dynamically. And I found only one references in I think the DSPyGen, which I then took and modified to have it kind of in using in my wizard, in the code generation wizard.
Yeah. So this is the DSL. And so in the DSL, you can actually specify signatures. So this is kind of why I didn't go further down on the class-based, is I just made it so that you could do that. And like, I have one readme .yaml. Yeah. Where is that? Yeah, readme structure YAML. Okay, so this, actually, this is something else. But yeah, somewhere around here, always somewhere around here, is using the DSL to create super long readmes as part of my project planning technique. Cool. So I think I'm going to get into like what I've been working on. There's been a lot of it. So any questions before we get going? We'll check real quick, see if there's anything from. All right, cool.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I've needed to have an RFC signature, because if I go stuck in my code generation process for anything,
yeah,
you have to have some dynamical RFC signature where you can specify what is the change you need to move on. And so in principle, you can even start just with a plain vanilla RFC signature and just enter whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if you have a structure already there and the structure is is already quite helpful to guide you down to the wizard, but still you need an RFC signature somewhere
Could you
where you
explain?
just dynamically
Can you explain
create a
RFC
signature.
for people that don't know? Because we have a non-technical audience as well. So if you could
Yeah.
explain RFC.
In any software development process, you get your contract to develop new stuff is made mostly by a business analyst or maybe the CEO or the CTO or some staff giving you a request for change, because you have something running and you need to change some bits and parts and to modify your code base. And normally I think you just started the Jira stuff, because normally you get it by a Jira.
Yeah.
You get an RFC by a Jira, and it's a ticket kind of, and you have to work down it as a developer to fulfill. Yeah, to go to the definition of done. Yeah,
Yeah.
If the thing is, yeah, you get paid in principle for
Yeah.
your delivery.
The world I come from, it's called a PRD, so it's a product requirements document. Basically, at my level at least, we're talking about products. It usually ends up being like waterfall. One of the things, actually, let me go back to what I was talking to David about. I have this book from 1919 on modern business and plant management. And basically, if you read this, the techniques that we're using to develop code and plan code and all that stuff are pre-industrial revolution. So people think that they're being modern, think that they're being advanced, but in reality, it's almost the same as doing things by hand. So let me go into the ways that it's going to be, because we're getting close to everything changing. I'm about to flip the switch on some of these things, and I'll get into it. So let me first off show the most recent thing I've been working on is this application runtime. And so pieces going on. And so what you can see right here is I'm using their don't worry about the errors, but you can see these kind of these values getting echoed. Let me go to the Dapper documentation to help you. So it stands for Distributed Application Runtime. And the way to explain it, I think, is that I was talking to David about what David was working on. And so he was building his YouTube system using Google Spreadsheets as a data store, which works just fine. A spreadsheet is almost the exact same as a database table if you strip away all of the fancy kind of optimization pieces. But there are universal problems that, for instance, David cannot solve because they're just so complex once we move from we're just running it off of our computer phase to the advanced phase. So this service to service invocation, this is like web services talking to each other. Publish to subscribe is just kind of broadcasting messages. People can respond to them if they want, and when I say people, I mean, we'll just assume I'm talking about people like developers or project teams, things like that. Workflows are what I'm going to be getting into. This is pretty complex. State management, this is David's spreadsheet. Bindings of input and output. So this is external resources, but one of the thing for the non-technical people is, imagine YouTube, the notification button, or the notification button specifically, right? David, you hit a notification bell, right? Do that on YouTube. That's like the way I say, right? David, his software gets that notification from YouTube, and that's how he can detect whether or not things are going right. It's like, hey, Sean, this week 10 people hit notification, and that means that we need to do X, Y, and Z, right? So that's the bindings. Actors, these are actually what workflows are built on top of. We're not going to necessarily talk about them because it's a little low level. Secrets, from passwords to access keys, all these different things. Configuration. So this is a big one. Basically, you want to be able to control things while they're running. And so by not having values stuck in the code, this allows you to change where things point, where things access. Distributed lock, not so much so important. And cryptography, some under the hood stuff for sure. But let's kind of get into an example of what this all builds into. So hopefully everybody knows about Atlassian. This is Atlassian's generative AI solution called Rovo. So Rovo is their virtual agents. It really manifests as search. So one of the things about all these agent systems, and that's the reason why I was showing the book of the manufacturing from 1919, is if you look at, one of the things is I look at how this information is parsed as an indicator of like what's valuable, what they think the most important thing is. So the most important they think is that you need to be able to search for something. This, by the way, at the last company I worked at, I'm not going to mention them anymore, they really, really, really wanted to hammer on search. And my whole point was, we already know what you need to know. Why don't we just give you the information instead of making you search for it, right? So it's a different kind of component. So now we have chat. So there's a lot of interesting things that can be done with this. One of the things that you'll see me get into is like, for instance, Slack integration. Okay. So now we have agents, right? These are taking different actions, usually through APIs, and there'll be a marketplace. There's always a marketplace, and so these are the big themes, right? As you might notice, workflow management. One of the key components about going from where we're at now to where we're going is moving things into workflow. That is the key thing that I'm focusing on, because as things get moved into workflow, that frees us up to do new things, think about new things, work on new things. Until everything's moved into workflow, we really don't have anything else to talk about. Because no matter what, if it's not in a workflow, you're manually doing something that slows the whole process down. So, these pieces are still kind of, okay, so actually, if we really start breaking it down, right? Generate, review, refine content for all types of communications, product specs. So this is exactly what Dr. Vogel was talking about, right? So another way you could put it is the CEO communicates to the product manager, that gets turned into product specs. Then goals get set, which is what developers get. And then people call it agile. It's not agile is like a whole different thing than where it has ended up in standard practice. So anyway, these are all some use cases. But then there's another really interesting piece, which is all of these connections, right? By being able to interact with all these systems, I'm sure people have interacted with Google Drive or Microsoft services, Slack, GitHub, Zapier as the big ones that kind of are apparent to me. So another thing that's interesting is here they're doing the kind of the data gathering form stuff. But what's funny is, for me, I can actually take this and turn it into those requirements that Dr. Vogel was talking about. And so basically that's kind of Rovo. So then how does that translate into what I'm working on from a rubber hitting the road code perspective? And that's basically what I've done is I will start with the Atlassian workflow, right? So here I'm connecting to all of these different services. I then have a workflow. We can kind of ignore this part. But then here we're declaring all of the things that are going to happen in this workflow, right? And so then, you can kind of ignore this. This is where it gets kind of interesting, right? Is like, all right, so we're creating an issue, and then we're updating a Confluence page. So this is like our documentation. We're manipulating a user, maybe a developer. We're creating a repo for the source code, creating tickets for, service desk. Things need to happen. Only humans can do them. And then we have test execution management. One of the big things that you're going to see, and the reason why I'm kind of making the claims or the promises that I make, is I've spent a lot of time testing every single piece of this. So when I tell you about this, I'm not telling you this from the perspective of, I call it like prayer-based development. And what I mean by that is, real quick, I'll show you what traditional agents look for. So auto, gen, using the gen in a different way, but agentic AI, right? I always, whenever somebody mentions one of these AI systems, I immediately go into the agents, into the source code, and look at their agent and look to see where the prompts are. So if we go to conversible agent, right? Here you go. Here, I mean, this is documentation, but we could just basically take that to be representative of where the prompts are. Somewhere they've moved the prompts since I last checked, but this is kind of what you can think of. But actually, this is very good representation, right? Like everything here is laid out and like specified and locked down and very, very specific, right? I'm completely bypassing all of these things because I'm saying, well, if I just turn it into a workflow with activity, it's not like this is rocket science, right? I don't need some super advanced AI to create this repo. It just needs to be able to get from the input the project key and the repo name. Well, we can have a large language model generate that, or not even a large one, just a language model, generate that, and then we're good, right? Service tickets as well. This is why when I'm working with people, these are the kind of the units of discussion that I'm working with, not, oh, do you want a swarm, or do you want this, or do you want that? Like you probably, like I wrote an entire newsletter article. You probably don't want a swarm, because a swarm brings in chaos, because by its nature, it's an agent. It's choosing its own behavior if you let it. And that's not what this is about. So this is kind of that going straight forward. But then now let's get into the kind of the agent stuff. Actually, we can go to here, the sales workflow, right? So here I'm taking this and I'm running an agent within the workflow memory. So the way that my agents work is, you could take this prompt and imagine that this is text coming in from anywhere. This could be a text message. This could be a chat. This could be an API call. This could be a web scraping, whatever you want, text, right? What happens is my agents take this in, and I'll just kind of jump through it real quick. There's this FSM trigger call, which means that it's choosing its state to change into in the agent, which means that basically I can define exactly where the agent is and how it behaves. So one of the things we can get into is, and I'll just kind of highlight this really quickly, is that you go from handling, you can get to closing a deal from you've handled the objections, or you've been outreaching, and now you can close, right? So you can't go from researching to closing, right? It's very, very laid out. It's very, very specific. One of the things that's good about this, and this is something that I've done in the past, I'm just going to jump into it real quick, is Mermaid. If you work with me, this is how I think about the systems that I'm working on. Is not like a swarm of things. It's more of a, so these diagrams, right? Like we're going from one system to the next. It's very, very specific. It's not swarms of things that are all figuring out what to do. Because here's another thing about it. When people talk about the swarms that I can make, they're usually thinking about like 5 agents or 7 agents. I can do like 300, 1,000, 10,000, a million at a time, right? In terms of how long they take to execute and stuff like that, we'll just ignore that. But my system can handle that. So it's like when you say to me, Sean, I want a swarm of agents, I'm like, you want 100 million agents? Because like that's the scale that I'm thinking about. And you probably don't want 100 million. So then you're asking for something less than that. And as you're going slower and lower and lower, that's less and less and less and more specific. Again, right? Most people are in the 1919. I'm in 2024 and beyond. So I guess that's the thing, is if you want 100 million agents, or actually 500 million, if you want 500 million agents, you can talk to me about agents. agents. If you want less than 500 million, then we're not going to necessarily talk about agents until we've put everything that you need to do into a workflow, right? Most businesses are not a million different workflows. You might do like 25 different things, 100 things, let's just say 1,000 things, right? Like if you think about your average business doing 1,000 different things, one of the components. Sure, when I don't mean different things in terms of the actual data inside, I'm talking about creating Jira issues, updating Confluence pages, right? So that's another split. There is I guess you could think about it as like planning and execution, right? This represents the planning, and then this represents the execution. Sure, within the execution, there can be variability, but you don't want, this is a perfect example of like versus humans, right? You don't want for your team of humans to be 100 different ways of updating a Confluence page. You probably have an SOP where you want it to be done one way. And if it's not done one way, that's a problem because maybe somebody's not putting the ID in the right place, all that different stuff. So another component of this is the mocks. So everything about the workflow that I'm showing you, oops, that's not the right button. Everything that I'm showing you is tested, right? So all of these are showing you that, whereas I'm still, we're working on Dapper. I think if anybody knows a Dapper expert, or, you want to chip in on one or help us figure it out, we need that. But at least in terms of from my side, I know all of this stuff works, and it'll work every single time, and it'll work the exact same way. We could run this 500 million times and it would always behave the exact same way, right? That's the difference between what I'm doing and working on versus like, I think what other people are doing is they're thinking about doing it like 100 times, 1,000 times. I'm thinking about it as, I talk about Lean Six Sigma a lot of the times, and that means that Six Sigma means that you can do something 1,000,000 times with only 3 mistakes, right? That's the scale that I'm thinking about operating at. So if you're under that scale, which is fine, we're talking about a different technique. We're talking about different methods. So don't think that you need the 500 million, because that has its own challenges, right? Like another way I put it is like, you may want a water fountain, but you might be asking for the Hoover Dam. And it's like, if you want to pay me for the Hoover Dam, I can give you the Hoover Dam, but you probably want a water fountain. So there's that. And then let's just check to see if all the tests work. And we can see like, okay, so how much of this stuff is, okay, so we're in the wrong project. Oh, somebody texted. Oh, David. Okay. Yeah, for sure. David getting my attention. All right. We don't need this test CLI. That's the problem. All right. One more time. And yeah, we can get into like more like content and stuff, but I think that one of the things I want to do is get all of this stuff down, and then we can ask questions and stuff.
For after that, I have some stuff planned out. So just take your time, go through this. We'll take a break, and then we'll run through this after.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm almost done. We'll have some questions. Okay. So we're not going to go through all this stuff, but basically that, I have about 60% test coverage, which if you ask pretty much anybody else how much test coverage they have, the question will be, I don't know what you mean by test coverage. So we also have a example of, for instance, this is Internet of Things for gas. So let's imagine that you have 500 million oil wells, right? Or 500 million sensors in your whatever, right? This is a workflow that handles grabbing, creating data, creating records, reading them, updating them, deleting them, storing them, and asserting that they're valid. So this is a huge step that almost nobody else has as well, is actual validation steps in their work. How do you know you did the right thing? Well, if you don't know how you're doing, then you can't say that we'll do 1,000,000 times with 3 mistakes. I will know if I make a mistake, and then we can look at it and fix it so that it doesn't happen again. So we got that. So in terms of the cases we have, managing an enterprise, right? Like almost everything through enterprise companies would go through this. We have an example of, the Internet of Things, 500 million sensors type thing. And then we have the, sales process agents. And so we can, this market research, right? Another thing is we can call out to other APIs. So one of the things that I've been thinking about all this stuff, and the reason why I'm working on it, is as opposed to me trying to pull everybody into my ecosystem, pull them into my SaaS, pull them into my thing, I want to be able to interact with everybody else's system, because it's in being able to work with everybody else's system that we can then pull them in to the next thing. But unless we are fully integrated, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So yeah, I think that's where we're at with the Dapper gen. And we have, the DSPy gen, Dr. Vogel's working on the code generation. We have our full stack web stuff. So I'm not saying that I can't do things or I won't do things, but what it is that I'm bringing us into a new phase of coding and development and stuff like that. So, you should defer to me for what you need versus, kind of necessarily coming at me with like preconceived ideas, just because I see the future as who can remove as many steps as possible, not who can do as many things as possible. Because if you want to have the fight about who can do the most things, I can fight you there. But also, if you want to have the fight for who can do the least amount of things, I don't think anybody else is challenging me on that front. So if anybody has any questions or wants to, take a break or something like that, let me know. Did a lot of talking.
Yeah, if you want to start kind of the no code part of this, we can do that.
Sure. Yeah. What's up with that? What are we doing?
Okay, so let's just don't restart the stream. I can just clip this later. So I want to do this. I'm going to run through some quick fires, some yes or no's. You have like 10 seconds to explain the answer.
Okay.
And if you want to bring up something interesting about it later, bring it up later, and then we'll go through the other topics.
Okay.
Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay, so first, quick fire yes or no's. I need yes or no's, explain them afterwards. Okay.
Sure.
First off, I was reading something earlier. Do you think AI is ever going to plateau? Do you think the cool stuff, like not just development, like the cool parts of AI, do you think they're ever going to stop being normal? Like, do you think we're going to stop getting weekly cool things from AI?
No, I don't think we're going to stop.
Okay, will AI make it easier or harder for little companies to compete with big companies?
I don't think there's going to be any companies. So no.
We'll talk about that right now. Yeah, there. That's the point. Let's go. Talk about it.
Oh, so basically, I think all things will converge on my way of doing things. So I'll just be deciding all of these things. So
what is your way of doing things?
The AI is figuring it out. My belief is that AI will make all decisions for all things. Humans will sit around like thinking that they're running things, but in reality, they won't.
Okay, cool. And then the last quick fire of the day before we get into the topics. Do you think AI could be understood? Just like in the past, we used to be able to understand an algorithm that code was doing. Do you think we'll be able to understand how AI works?
Well, I think at a certain point, there's two parts to it. I think one, it doesn't matter, but it's also, there's AI in terms of the super sci-fi smart stuff. And then there's AI in terms of doing work, right? Like mundane stuff. I think that we're going to get to a point with my technology where all the easy stuff is handled, and that we're not going to need super smart AIs, except there's going to be like people in universities or people like making decisions, doing that kind of stuff. So I think we got a hand up. Just a second. So is that it?
No, I have some points to get through, but if we have some questions you want to entertain, we can do those now.
Yeah, let's do that. I think you can speak now.
Oh, hi. How you doing there, Sean?
What's up?
Well, basically speaking, I think what's going to really happen, my opinion is that, and I know this differs a little from your opinion. I think that what's going to happen is you're going to see man and machine kind of meld a little bit, and there's going to be some awesome number of things that go on. I know you think there'll be no companies and everything like that, but I think what's going to happen is this will escalate and turn into something that really supports companies of all sizes. And it's going to be a lot easier to compete because it'll be a level playing field. Your AIs will do the leveling. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's why Alan's talking to people and I'm not.
Yeah.
right? Like that's why. So Alan's handling the sales and the marketing. I just show up when you need to sign the check or talk about having the work done, because
Cool.
the thing about it is that people are entitled to their opinions. I'm just dropping facts on people. So the thing about the statements that I'm making, I'm not making them from the perspective of like, oh, I'm a pundit about AI. I'm like, no, I'm looking what I have on my computer right now. I've been doing this for 24 years and I know what everybody else is doing, and it's not even close. So the whole point is that in terms of the race to the bottom, nobody can compete with me, at least right now. And the only way you're going to be able to compete with me is to either be faster, cheaper, better. But as soon as you even show what you can do, I can then immediately do it faster, cheaper, and better. So,
Well, the good news is that you're the kind of the wings underneath our interdisciplinary AI community. So we appreciate that. And there's some other folks that will add to what you're doing.
yeah, well, I think there's a really good quote by William Gibson, which is, the future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. Right. So I'm in the future generation business. Alan, the tele guy, is in the future distribution business. And the thing is, across inefficient markets, you're able to generate profits from those inefficiencies, which is how I see, Alan kind of where he really comes in is, there's all these existing systems that are super inefficient. So even just making them a little less inefficient will provide value. Therefore, you can extract value. But in terms of the like underlying technology, it's all going to be, automated. It's really so.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about loneliness.
Loneliness. All right. So I think I'm gonna.
Very few AIs are lonely.
I'm gonna just drop you for this one, Alan, and we'll go to just the. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Because we're gonna do this like the social stuff. So.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Okay. You had the perfect. Okay. Cool. So yeah, back to David. Loneliness.
So loneliness. It's tons of people are now saying it's one of the most deadly things.
Yeah.
Like people are starting to recognize that loneliness kills. Loneliness makes people's lives worse, and it makes everyone's lives worse because people are less productive. How is AI affecting that whole industry of making people less lonely, and in general, talk about AI in the medical industry?
Yeah. So the thing to start off with in terms of like loneliness, especially just from my own personal experience, right? I'm 42. I have a wife. I have a dog, and I have my own business that I'm starting. So the thing is, like, I'm taking it really back, is I actually was asked to leave the high school that I was at in my senior year because I was having basically attitude problems and mental issues. So in terms of even having like a high school group of friends, that got disrupted, and I never went to college. So if you think about like standard friend group, I don't really have that. Now, one of the things that I do is attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And the thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is combating the loneliness through the group is exactly like the first part of the program. So I'm not going to go too deep into that, but that basically that's why AA is so successful across the world, is because it's the founder, there's the founder, and then the other co-founder. And what the second guy said, Dr. Bob, he said, it wasn't that Bill, the first guy, taught me how to like worship God or do anything like that. He taught me how to help out another alcoholic, right? So for instance, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm actually directly using those techniques right now. What am I doing? I'm helping out another programmer. I'm helping out, David, who's younger, or Dr. Vogel, who wants to do code for crypto kind of stuff, right? I'm being of service. So that's how you combat loneliness, but you have to have something to help people with, right? If you're just kind of like watching content and, just living life, which I've had my phases in, it's hard to get started. And so I think it's what I think is going to happen with my technology on the same side is then tonight I'll go to like friend groups and stuff like that for most other people that don't have the 12-step stuff, which pretty much everybody has something they need to take care of, but that's a whole different philosophy. It's basically, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The thing I was thinking, the way I talk about it in terms of like, let's say climate change or just technology and something, there's probably some person that's working a minimum wage job where if they had the resources to not work at that minimum wage job, maybe they could solve one of these problems. But so many people are doing menial work because that's the way that things are done, that if you think about it another way, right? Just your white collar worker, they hate their job, they hate their boss, they hate what they do every single day. So as soon as they leave the work, they are taking actions that are detrimental to their health, but make them feel better because their job makes them feel so bad, for instance. So I believe with AI, it's the, taking things off of people's plates that will free them up to then be able to help out other people and stuff like that. So
yeah, you kind of mentioned it briefly. Do you think addiction has more to do with loneliness than just the actual physical, chemical body stuff?
I think it's all interconnected, right? Like the thing is, there's like I don't know who said it, but it was like we're cavemen with TVs, right?
Yeah.
We're not these ultra evolved beings that are far beyond like what our lower level senses are. Humans were not designed there's no humans in nature, or at least let's just say prehistory humans, where it's like, oh, I'm just one person sitting in my hut. It's like, it didn't work that way. You had to work with other people. Even the shipwreck stories, it's like all those stories, they have tools and stuff like that. But I think that we definitely, the physical aspects of it. I think another thing about it is social media, for instance, that, or other kinds of, let's just say, unsavory visual stimuli from the internet. That these things there's smart people like me who are figuring out how to extract value from humans by like bringing down their brains, basically. And so, yeah, it's like social media. That's the thing, is like I worked at MySpace before Facebook went public. And so I was at the very beginning of seeing this stuff happen. And the phrase that I use is, I said, we're digitizing grandma's consciousness, and this is not a good thing. We're not doing it out of like the goodness of our hearts. There's graphs and charts of like, we're not getting enough money from grandma. We need to send her more bingo coins or whatever, mobile apps, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you think something like this will ever end? Like the idea of monetizing the things that people don't want to be monetized?
I mean, here's the thing. I think that I'm going to be automating so many things so rapidly. Let's just take it for instance, let's just take what I showed on my computer right now. We're not going to go into some far off future. What I just showed right now is, if every single product manager on the planet all of a sudden started using my system, all of a sudden a lot of their time would be freed up. And with that freed up time, they might be able to figure out a way to make their life better, make other people's lives better. So it's the fact that there's this, I see this as this massive amount of human capacity to figure out these problems or work on them, that's being absorbed by the fact that humans are having to do these menial tasks that the computers can do for them. So I think that these questions aren't necessarily even the right question. Not to say that not answer them, but until we've all been freed from having to work in the factory, we can't answer these questions. But I think that from what I can see, by when I know that the factories are fully automated, we're going to have different questions. It's going to be a different world. So
yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about education. Specifically, what schools should be teaching. Like when my parents were in school, they were taught to memorize stuff. When I'm in school, I'm now being taught that memorizing is horrible and that they taught them all garbage. And instead, you should be learning how to think, because memorization isn't something important anymore. Yeah. Because we have access to all the information we could ever want. What's going to change? What's going to be my kids' equivalent to that statement?
Well, I mean, I think the thing is that we'll reach a point. I mean, one, we have to survive the upcoming climate change, which I do have hope for. And actually, there's a book that I recommended to David called Thin Air by Richard K. Morgan. And so it's about the colonization of Mars and the economics of that, and all these interesting facets. So I do feel like we're going to be turning the planet into like Venus or Mars pretty rapidly, and it's going to be some adjustment to that. So that's coming. But in terms of like that far down the line, I mean, the way I talk about it is that, before, let's go back to before 1919, right? In this book, they talk about the biggest factory being 20,000 workers. And so the scale that we're on now is just so completely different than what was there before. But now let's take it even further back, like to farmers, right? Back before there was even industrialization, pretty much everybody was a farmer. You were always a farmer, your family were farmers. You could only consider farming. So back then, you wouldn't have school because what would you be teaching people anyway? I think that education is just going to kind of become this, well, what's funny is you have the kind of the anti-education wings of the world where, there's always going to be people that are like angry and want, ignorance and things like that. So you have the people that are going to be as ignorant as they want, but then I think it's just going to be like, you're learning to learn. The thing about the current school system, so this is, I think, where, like, for me growing up, is completely unique. So you also have to kind of recognize that my story doesn't have any kind of bearing on like everybody else's reality, I would say, because one of the things is I was like a gifted kid when I was young. And so I had parents who didn't really care about school because everybody, and this is the other thing, is like literally everybody that came across the little kid version of me was like, Sean's going to be fine. I could do like advanced math before everybody. I could do all this stuff, but I never did homework. I always, barely graduated, all that kind of stuff, because it just wasn't, it was also easy for me. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be, since things are going to be so different, that it's just going to be like choosing what do we want to do, right? Like now we have to do things. And I think we'll enter a phase where it's like, what do I want to do? What do I want my kids to do? And you have, the freedom to think about it. Or we enter this authoritarian hellhole that is one other, kind of option. All right. So Mr. Big Dill Pill has a question.
Yeah.
All right. Put the invite sent. I think the request to speak has been granted.
There we go.
What's up? You're muted. Cool.
Oh.
All right. So we'll come back.
Yeah. Okay. I have a few other things I just want to question you about.
Sure.
Okay, great. You hurt your wrist recently, and you were talking about how much it sucked to use a computer. After hurting your wrist, what are some things about daily tech interactions that you now know suck, you never realized sucked before? Like, what are the things that we absolutely have to get rid of when it comes to using a computer every day?
Using a computer every day?
Things like, I know you're really against using a keyboard and you really like voice input, stuff like that.
Yeah,
what are some things like that we need to change?
That's the biggest. Oh wait, so let's let Big Dill Pill or whatever it is jump in for a second.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, man?
Hey Sean, man, it was really great. And I listened to you for a few minutes just now. We briefly chatted over LinkedIn. I feel like I know you
okay, cool. Yeah,
well already. So yeah, just on the education aspect, figured I'd share some thoughts. I've been teaching since I was 15 as like a private educator. I grew up in Palo Alto, around Silicon Valley, the tech space, and basically I would just be teaching whatever math or science class I'd just taken. I would teach it to the grade below me. So I kind of built up like a network of teaching all the smart, mostly Indian kids in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of seeing like the education system and like all the flaws that I've noticed in it. And like you, I got in a lot of trouble. Sounds like you got a lot of, and your fair share of trouble when you were young. And, I had this kind of similar story of, people like my friend's parents would talk to me and say he's going to be fine, but, he's getting kicked out of school for doing crazy stuff and ended up going to college. But anyway, on the education side, there's a lot of different aspects. One thing I think is going to happen is the cutting edge research problems are going to become really well defined by the people at the cutting edge. And the AI is going to be able to learn the function that's going to translate a smart 5-year-old kid to be able to solve that problem. And so the AI is going to be able to see, okay, this is the horizon of all the research, like the existing kind of research questions that the guys at the cutting edge of their different fields are probing at, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to, learn the function of how do I take this 5-year-old that has, a 140 IQ, probably if you're below that, you're not even going to be in the game. How can I translate that 5-year-old? And by the time they're 15 years old, probably doesn't even need to be 20 years old or 22 years old. How do we get him to the cutting edge?
Yeah.
And I think it's not going to be for everyone. And I think a lot of these questions we say, what are we going to do? We aren't going to do shit. You may be able to do something for yourself and find a tribe that works for you, but there's not going to be a solution for wheat.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think the thing about it, but that's also where my beliefs come in my unilateral decision for the fate of humankind. Is that a lot of this stuff I'm just not letting people decide, and people don't. So what's funny is there's this thing called the DISC assessment, and so one of the things that I'm really good at is manipulating people without them knowing they're being manipulated, and that's something that I like actively like shape. So some of these plans and things that you're hearing me talk about, these are plans that I was making. I was at Riot Games in like 2011, 2012. These are things that I planned back then. Back at MySpace 2006, 2000, these are things that I was planning back then because I was watching where things were evolving and then also making those systems and being involved in them. And so I think that as we go along, what's going to happen, I think, is that, well, here's one of the things that I'm bringing about that's different. And I think, David, this is something along the questions you had of like optimizations, which is, for instance, all of my code is tested. And so I think where the value will come in is creating these test environments in which we can then simulate and project and make kind of these next level decisions. Because I think so much of what we're doing now as a society and resource usage and all this stuff is just so inefficient that it's the inefficiencies that we're dealing with that I think that there's abundance, all over the place, but we have to be able to figure out how to remove the inefficiencies. And it's a matter of like, how well can I, interact with the powers that be? But I do think, like, especially politically, right? Like, people might think like, oh, environmental policy. We don't have time for that. Like, I am going to be bringing to people saying, hey, if you are more efficient, I will save you $1 million a month. How about that? And then they're like, oh yeah, Sean, cool. It's hard to argue with that kind of savings. And then it's like, oh, all of a sudden our entire factory is being run by Sean. So I think that kind of, spread of my technology and these efficiencies and things, but it's also at the same time, things like dashboards and the stuff is people are going to think that they're in control way more than they actually are. But the thing about it is it's going to be because it's beneficial, right? The only way that these things work is if I'm helping people, if I'm saving people money, I'm making people money, I'm building systems, I'm improving systems. So it isn't like I don't have an army, I don't hack or anything like that, but it's going to be oh shit, the Sean Chapman version of this is so much better than the system that we have now. Let's give Sean's version a try. Oh shit, Sean's version is working so much better than we have. What else does Sean have for us? And then it's like, oh yeah, here's Sean's society. But it's also based on a lot of science fiction. But the thing that's great about science fiction is it's the really smart people 40 years ago saying, well, what's going to happen in 10 years? And it just so happens that what they said was going to happen in 10 years. It took 40 years to get here. But, I think especially I'm a big fan of the Sprawl trilogy by William Gibson. I think that's a really good one for people to kind of look at for like what's going on now and like what are the very next things to come about. And then, like I said, that Richard K. Morgan book, Thin Air. Because one of the things that's going to happen is actually, if you were to look at my notebooks, for instance, from Riot, which I have right here, something I was talking to David about, is I was using as code names the science fiction books that I was reading. So when people were like, oh yeah, we're on the Neuromancer project, it's like, yeah, you are. And you're actually building you don't know it, or maybe you do, but you're building these systems from the sci-fi. So I think that what's going to happen, especially because the language models know so much about sci-fi, is my systems are going to say, okay, so this terraforming Earth stuff, we need to terraform Earth, like completely. How do we do that? All right, the language model knows about a science fiction book, Isaac Asimov, solution for it. All right, let's implement what he had. Boom, David's robotics, got that. Sean's AI code and systems, got that. Now let's go terraform Earth. I think that the scale that I'm thinking on that's why I was talking about, like, if you want 500 million agents, come talk to me. If you want like 5 or 7 agents talking to each other about building a software project, that's not the scale that I'm thinking about. But only when you get to the 500 million agent scale, it's the same thing with the language models. But what's happening is, for instance, it used to be that, the GPT-4 is what, like 1.7 trillion parameters?
Yeah.
And we don't even know what 4.0 is. and we don't even know what 5 is. But now with the Quen model, like Dr. Vogel was talking about, I can do with a 7 billion parameter model what was hard, what maybe even a 1.7 can't even do. So that's another aspect, is I think that there's going to be a compression in the power, and people are going to be able to use these language models more effectively. I think that's one of the first explosions that's going to happen, is all of a sudden everybody's going to have on their laptop a super sentient AI. Now, sentience is like, what do you can debate what that means and all that stuff. But the whole thing is that there's a really good movie that people should watch if they want to know what's going on, also called The Imitation Game. And it's about Alan Turing. And so it's really interesting to see what the guy that started the first computer thought about the world. He was on the autism spectrum. So his vision of things is, and actually it's more similar to mine. I'm bipolar, so I'm a little bit different in my energy, but in some ways very similar. So yeah, I think end of rant. David, do you have the next question?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay on this for a second.
Okay, sure.
You talked a lot about your goals and future, what you think the future will look like and all that kind of stuff. Why do you think you're still gonna have these goals and kind of whatever is driving you now? Why do you think that's still gonna be the same 5, 10, 15 years from now?
Oh, I don't know. So here's the thing, the way to think about it, like one of the key optimize things that I talk about, right? I've been a computer programmer for 24 years. That's only a fact in terms of professionally. I first programmed a computer 33 years ago. Yeah, so 33 years ago, I programmed my first computer. And here, there's a brochure that I show of my grandfather's company. Basically, like the movie War Games, that computer system, my grandfather was literally building that thing. Not kind of, but like literally building it. So I'm 9 years old learning how to program, and my grandfather's showing me like missile launch control system videos. And so I'm a little kid, 9-year-old, like, oh, okay. So then that means that I could control every single intercontinental ballistic missile on the planet. That's a pretty cool idea. Or I'd see Terminator and see Skynet, and people are like, oh my God, Skynet's so crazy. And I'd look at it and I'd see the CLI of the Terminator, and I see the CLI of Terminator, and I'm like, the Terminator is just like some SQL queries. Like, what is going on? I'm able to read it. I'm 11, and so the vision of Skynet running the planet and stuff, like that was never a big idea to me. I'm like, oh, okay, it's just like some CLI commands. So that's kind of one of the things when I talk about these systems, is people think that AI is some ultra smart thing. And what I'm saying is, in reality, actually, to me, the important part of AI is to be able to do these very, very dumb things, right? Here's the thing. Most people think that they're way more complex than they actually are. Or they think they're humans are so creative that AI will never be as creative as a human. That is not true at all. Humans, like AIs, have already passed humans, like it is not even close. So I think that, to take it all the way back. So then, back then, but to now, is that I said that I was going to retire on my birthday, which is about 28 days ago. And so the thing about that is that if you think about it, what does it mean if I retire? Well, that means that I have an AI system that's as good at programming as I am. And if the AI is as good at programming as I am, I say I'm a better programmer than everybody else on the planet. So that means then I will have a system that can program computers better than everybody on the planet. There are a lot of programmers. Pretty much everything relies on programming when you go down low enough. So this is something that I've been thinking about for a long, long time. So it isn't like, for instance, language models. Everybody's super excited about language models. Like, oh my God, it's this new tech. I built my first language model by hand back in 2016. No, not 2016. Yeah, no, 2016. So I was building my own language models 8 or 9 years ago. I think it's 8 years ago. So to me, this is not like, this time in history is something I've been waiting for 8 years. So it's not like I'm just coming up with these ideas, or I'm just like, I've been waiting for this. I've had my want, and I'm like, all right, one day AI is going to get good enough to hang with me, or one day, and see that here's the thing. It's not necessarily, the secret isn't that I can have AI do so much stuff. It's that I can have the AI help me create the manufacturing plant for code. And that's what we actually need. So we don't need these super smart models. Like, I'm probably not going to even use GPT-5. Like, by the time GPT-5 comes out, I'll probably be done. It's actually these really, really small models, but it's the fact that the GPTs have been able to help me build these frameworks that's been the really critical element. So I think it's more of a matter of, I'm going to just have all the work done. And then I don't know what other people. So that's another question. People say, Sean, what is the future of work? Like, your systems, are they going to put people out of work? And I'm like, yeah, pretty much everybody. And they're like, well, but what does that mean for everybody? I'm like, I don't know. Figure out something else to do, right? Like, we need, I don't use the word universal basic income, because that's what I say is that basically this is kind of how I structure my business, right? Is that I want to set everybody up as their own business. And maybe your AI, you have your AI for you that generates stuff, and then you get paid for it. So that way, at least in the United States government, I don't know about other world, is we can just print money. So it's like, all right, let's just print money and give it to our own businesses. That way, we're not saying that we're just giving it to people, but everybody has a business, everybody gets money, we all live and figure it out from there. That's kind of the best case scenario. That's that's actually more of a way that I think about things, is probabilities. And so I don't know what the probability is that, but I just know that it's a potential outcome, one that I'm working towards. But it's also going to be, again, you also have to think about it this way, right? Let's say you're a software development company. You are 5 people in Eastern Europe. How are you going to compete with me? It's like you just can't. Like, it's not even close. Unless you're doing what I'm doing at the level I'm doing it at, you can't compete. I can show up to your client and say, you guys, it takes you $10,000 to build a project. I could build you the same project for $10. Now, Alan's in charge of the pricing, so you don't get the pricing from me. But that's what I'm saying is like, but imagine that now for all human knowledge work, or we could talk about it in terms of text generation, right? Literally every human's job requires an email, right? Pretty much, right? You got to send an email to somebody to do whatever. I can have an AI system that sends every single kind of email on the planet. How are you going to compete with me? Are you going to write a better email than my system? My system can do it faster and cheaper than you can. I can access data faster. So that's kind of like where it comes from. Is it's not like I'm being like confident or being bragging or anything like that. I'm just talking about pure numbers. I'm talking about what I see running on my computer, right? Like, the only thing that's constraining me is the fact that I have to integrate with external systems. If everything, like right now, if you waved a magic wand and said, Sean has access to every single system on the planet, we'd already be done. It's literally the fact that other people, their stuff sucks and it's hard to set up, that is the limiting factor on what I'm making. And that's rapidly, as projects are coming in. By the way, if you're seeing this on YouTube, hit me up. I can do this code for you in your company. You might as well get it before I start giving it out to your competition. Alan also doesn't like the way that I talk about that, but that's the reality that I think at. And that's the thing, is if you're going to be watching this video, you're down with how I think anyway. Otherwise, you'd go watch somebody else's video. So
yeah. Okay. I want to talk about one more thing.
Sure.
Old people. So nothing pisses me off more than looking at an old person using Google and then typing www or whatever. That just annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, why do old people suck at using technology? I'm not saying everyone does, but as a whole, there are some super smart older people who just cannot get their heads around technology. Why is that the case? Is it bad user? Like, is it bad on the programmer side, or why is it that older people don't use technology the same way we would?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, right? You're what, 18, 19?
19, yeah.
Okay. So like I said, I started programming before you were born. You were literally an egg in your mom's, wherever that, I think, I don't remember where the eggs go. So bad education. Ovaries? Yeah, I think you were an egg.
I don't know either. I'm not going to pretend I do.
That's how, yeah, I think it's the ovaries. So sorry if anyway, right? So you don't know a world without Wi-Fi, right? Mm-hmm. You don't know a world without mobile phones, right? Certain things are baked into what you know already. Now, the thing that you can't really quantify is that there are things that old people know that you don't, and you'll never know. But the problem is that here's another thing you can think about it. In reality, what people use computers for is really stupid, right? People aren't, again, that's why I keep waving this book around. Let me find it. Like, for instance, there's a spreadsheet in here. Now, let me open this up real quick. Okay, so this is a spreadsheet from 1919. Is this infinitely more advanced than what people are doing right now?
No.
No. So that's the thing. People, modern people, maybe you're thinking like, oh yeah, these computers are so smart and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is really dumb. It's just a matter of that we didn't have the intelligence at the cheap enough price, right? AI has existed for a while. It's just a matter of the price performance ratio was so skewed that you couldn't just use it on, I couldn't just use it on my laptop. But for instance, I calculated the computing power on my laptop. If my grandfather back in 1995 wanted to have similar power, it would have cost $4 billion. Right. So I have but that's another way to think about it, right? I think of it as I have a $4 billion computer on my desk, but other people don't think of it that way. Here's the question though. My laptop and the code on it is definitely worth way more than $4 billion, but that's kind of hard to see. And so I'm going to look at what Dr. Vogel said, because he's the money guy. Yeah, exactly. Printing money replaced by printing commodity, again, not gold.
Yes.
It's code data.
Yes, I think we have already everything, as you said. In the LLMs, there is already anything inside, but you have to mine it out. You have to extract it from them, and then you will be able to replace the fiat money again with commodity.
Yeah,
that's what I always tell people. Try to consider code as a commodity, and then that's the new money. And you're right. You're everybody can mint this at home and have a company and have creating their own money like commodity, which is code.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, code is the most expensive resource on the planet.
I agree.
And that's one of the reasons why it's cool working with Dr. Vogel. And the reason why I'm working with him on his stuff is it's that's the thing is I was doing, if you look way back at my newsletter, for instance, I have 550 editions of my newsletter. I started off with NFTs. I'm like, I like art. I have art. My office has been chewed up. We're going to be, fostering and adopting kids. So office is no longer what it once was. But I started off with NFTs, and then NFTs started crashing. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, what can I make with AI that's worth money? And I was like, I could probably make something with AI that's worth money. Oh yeah, I can make code. So then the question becomes, all right, well, how much code could I make with AI? And it's all of it. Because for instance, at the last company I worked at is a Fortune 500 company. I was on a team doing the data lakehouse. And even without large language models, I was doing 3 times more code than the rest of the team combined. Right? So that's kind of to let you guys know, 2 years ago, what my numbers were. And that's the thing is that's not me bragging. If you looked at the stats on GitHub, you'd see Graph Sean there, the rest of the team there. And so now, okay, so if I'm already 3x everybody else on my team combined before large language models, then you combine templating with the large language models, how much more code can I produce than everybody? And so then it's a matter of connecting that code to value. That's where Alan comes in with the inefficiencies of the system. And, that's where things come in. So any more questions, David?
Yeah, can I get a 60-second response on why you said code is the most expensive resource on the planet?
Yeah. So think about how much code I get paid by Fortune 500 companies in total compensation, $500,000 a year. So $500,000 a year if you want to have Sean, old Sean, right? Pre-AI Sean cost you $500,000 a year, right? Okay, so how much does code weigh on a computer, right? There is a weight of it, like atoms, right? Electrons, memory. So how much, if you take that $500,000 worth of, that's another way to put it, right? I was working for the guy that was the chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation. I'm not going to say his name, but that back when Bitcoin was popping off, I found out, which is basically if you paid for LinkedIn and used the mobile client, there was no like invite restriction. So what I said to myself is I said, look, either I can invest in Bitcoin, which would I'd be thinking about it. I'd be like focusing on it all the time. So Bitcoin has a cost, right? In cognitive management or whatever, right? Keeping your password, there's a cognitive price. That has a certain weight in your brain, right? Or I said, I bet, because let's just say Bitcoin was worth $100 at the time. And there were people saying, oh, it's going to be worth 50,000. And guess what? I knew those people were right, but I still didn't buy Bitcoin. So that's a whole different story. But basically, I said each one of these connections on LinkedIn, because I was able to go through all of his connections, I was like, the relationship with these guys, or at least the capability to go and talk to them, right? By having a first level connection on LinkedIn, I can message directly somebody and say, hey, I said, well, each one of these people would probably be worth at least $100, right? Like people pay money to contact people, right? And that's the sales process. So then you can value my LinkedIn connections at I value it's like $3 billion worth of LinkedIn connections. And so in terms of, again, the money value, is my LinkedIn account worth $3 billion or is it worth nothing? It really depends on who you ask, right? And so it's the in terms of, and so like let's go take it back to old people, right? It's a matter of like what's valuable to them. Another thing is you have to think about it, right? The human brain is optimized towards forgetting things, right? Almost all electrical, and your brain declines over time. So it's not like old people all of a sudden had this infinite capacity to learn things. And for you being 18, these are things that you just automatically knew. So, that's kind of that part.
Okay, perfect. I have all the major things I wanted to cover. Or if you want something else to be talked about,
Yeah,
some other stuff to talk about, or you can.
I got my dog. My dog's asleep right over there.
Yeah, you want to feature your dog real quick? Let's get Mark in here.
No, he is in a blanket asleep right now.
Don't get Mark in here.
No. So Mark is a dachshund, and we'll go to my newsletter. About my newsletter is it's where I kind of put the output of my day. So I also do pictures of him. Oh, let's got the pictures of Mark, and yeah, I mean it's like got cool pictures, all this stuff, and so yeah, this is Mark, basically. So my favorite thing in the
world, a Mark slideshow up.
Yeah, my favorite thing is for some reason sequined Uncle Sam costumes. We also have like the Migos, but yeah, I'd say my favorite thing in the world. But you can see here like War Games, The Matrix, right? To me, these things have Mars, right? Like these things, if you now track back across what I've been talking about, right? What is this, right? So $1 Million Weekend. So there's that. So yeah, I guess while we're here, I'll do a chat GPT. How do I make pictures of Mark, right? So what I say is I have a handsome reddish brown dachshund named Mark, period. I need a sequined outfit of Uncle Sam in dog appropriate sizing for a 4th of July fireworks spectacular at the Hollywood Bowl. Oh, sorry. And I said, see, it starts going into this stuff. And I say, Now, can you create a masterpiece picture for me of this event? Okay, I'm using GPT 3.5, no wonder. So let's take it to GPT 4.0 and now say, we'll go back up to here. There we go. So yeah, we'll bring Mark up to, and so I guess there's like other, visual things like, yeah, see, this is great. So I want Mark to be conducting the Los Angeles Philharmonic at the Hollywood Bowl. Period. The perspective should be from the back of the bowl, and you should see Mark's perspective as he looks out at the crowd. The crowd should also be all dachshunds, and the Philharmonic should be dachshunds too. So now imagine when you give me like Sora or whatever those other AI engines are. So this is very strange, right? So I want it from the opposite perspective. Okay, it's having trouble. Oh, you know what I said? Is that I want Mark on the stage of the Hollywood Bowl. Hollywood Bowl is one of my favorite venues to go to with my wife. It's a big highlight of summer. We've probably seen about 10 shows there. So yeah, there we go. This is good. He needs to be wearing a sequined Uncle Sam hat as well. The orchestra should be conducting comprised of all dachshunds as well. Okay, so it's having trouble, but I mean, we're getting there. So this is how I make my newsletter. So also how I make my newsletter, I say like create a working backwards press release of this entire system. So actually, yeah, this will be me putting my newsletter together.
You want to include a link to this in the newsletter?
Sure. I mean, I'm my brain's getting warped right now. I don't know where I'm going. So here, and so what I want to say is, but this is a perfect example, is I don't want it to sound like I work for Atlassian. So it's like, this is a prototype project. I do not work for Atlassian. And don't want to be sued. Right? That's a big challenge in life, is always got to make sure you don't get sued. Cool. Things moving forward. So what do we got? Oh, so here's the other thing that I do is I go to their actual site, and then I literally just grab all of this, and then I turn it. Oh, actually, yeah, now you'll see how I do this. So this is a perfect example. So watch. I just took all this code, all this marketing stuff, and put on there, right? But guess what? I'm now going to go to my PyCharm and grab the code and take this. Watch this, what happens. I go this, and then I go to this, and then I say, create the Design for Lean Six Sigma project charter that comprises everything in the conversation. You also have to do the hand signals. So I'm conducting that's what I need, David. I need an AI system that watches my hand signals to do code. So
We could do that.
yeah, let's find a partnership. I'm sure I want to try like brainwave stuff. Like I'm sure there's somebody that has like a thing that reads your thoughts. I could probably hook it
We
up
can get
to
you
this.
one of those helmets. I have one at my university.
Okay.
I'm sure they won't mind it going missing for a few days.
Yeah, just send it over. I'm sure through over the customs, it'll work. So
Yep.
here, but like in all seriousness, this goes all the way back to also what Dr. Vogel was talking about with, create the product requirements document for Rovo, and they don't know what Rovo is, so. So now we've given it all this stuff, but so now we can say, and now give me the Python code for the most complex workflow possible. So here's the thing I always talk about is I don't actually need this code to work. I'm not trying to make working code right now. Everybody, always says like, oh, the AIs can't code, they can't complete challenges, all that stuff. I don't need it to, because what I'm doing is I'm designing the entire system. So let's see what it does. It's probably going to just duplicate what was above it. And so this is a problem that occurs in 4.0 quite a bit. Mark just woke up. He's out of the blanket. Do not duplicate the code. Duplicate the imports, and then create new code. There you go. Okay, so let's see if it okay. So we'll see if it duplicates. Right now it does have to. Okay, here we go. Complex workflow. Okay, so here it's got the agent. It's just right now it's just composing out of the elements that exist. And so what I'm not gonna tell it, I'm gonna say, this is a good start, but I need you to interpolate the results and cross-reference the working backwards press release in the doc strings of the Python. Start off with a long doc string for the Python module that contains the contents of the working backwards press release. So you'll see what this looks like, which this is actually, you were watching how I work with this stuff. And then, so here's the other background is I'm usually doing this at like 9 o'clock at night. And my wife's like, hey, it's bedtime. And I'm like, I know, but I'm changing the world. She's like, I didn't ask you what you were doing. It's bedtime. So that is a glimpse into the Chapman household.
Okay, while this is going, there's a lot of generation going on screen. You want to talk about some stories from, let's go with some riot stories today.
Okay. So let me turn this off. We'll switch to
It can generate in the back. Let's just not have a boring minute. Let's always just be talking about something.
Okay. So well, just a second, I need to talk to it, say, so do not repeat the imports. Let's do pseudocode in Python for the next level features. Sorry, I just got it. Rovo. Okay, so let's start off. Well, I can tell you let's open up the notepad. Okay, so actually this is a very big, important one in this. So I'm going to switch so I can see it as well. Okay, so this is like a really, really big deal for me in my career, actually. So this is backwards, which sucks. I don't know if there's a way to like reverse it, but
it is. Yeah, I can reverse it later when I clip this. But yeah, you
Cool.
can mirror. You can flip your screen
on Discord.
On Discord, yeah.
Okay, but anyway, so here's what this is. I said it's static reference class auto-generated by AntScript. AntScript catches file sets of all types to be included, reference.getImage bitmap data. So this was when the air client for Riot was like the big deal. And so this is all about like loading up images. And so this is my first like League of Legends build order type stuff. So this is for Warwick Jungle technique. And so it's smite and ignite for summoner spells. Here's a perfect League of Legends quote. I was at Riot, and we were having a conversation about the summoner spells of League of Legends. And the thing is, I never could figure out how to use Flash properly, which is a summoner spell. And so what I said, but also that pretty much everybody has to take Flash as a spell. And what I said was either we should get rid of Flash, which is a stupid idea, or everybody should have it automatically as a spell, just like how they have the go back to base button. So that's that. So that's a Riot story. Oh yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
So this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying perfect.
Okay. So this.
Also, what's the deal with you showing that notebook? Is that a-okay to put on stream?
This is from 2011, and the code for this is so dead that nobody cares. So
okay, perfect.
Here's the thing that's interesting about this. This is actually esports history, though. So the thing about at Riot was before this, there was only the game could only be in three languages. And so again, I'm not like trying to take credit like I'm the greatest programmer there. It's all me. But the thing is that actually, here's a way to put it: is that the way that I thought about code unlocked, at least for that one piece, the whole world. Because the air client was how you got into games. It's how you did matchmaking. It's how you did a lot of stuff. In order for people in foreign languages to use the game, it was only in English, Spanish, and French. And so what you can see is actually by this $sign technique, which would be familiar to anybody doing TypeScript right now. So this is back in 2011. TypeScript definitely was not out. I realized like, oh, if I do a script, so Ant was like a Java technology. So I was doing Flash and Java, which was not something that was really done. I said, oh, well, if I just make it a wildcard, essentially, we could load up every single language. And so we basically created like an entire build system where we could essentially bake that language into different. So then all of a sudden the game could go from being just in 3 languages to all languages. And so that kind of pattern, that's how I think about this. This is how I think about systems in general and all these things is that, okay, how do we go from just 1 or 2 or like agent systems now, right? People think like right now your agents, you might get like 5 agents. We can, go to an agent framework and like you might get 5 or 6 agents. Let's look at we'll just continue generating. And we'll just say this still is not generating complex enough code. I need you to identify 25 more layers of abstractions and implement them as placeholders in the code of the workflow. Start your reply by listing the 25 layers, then program the 25 layers before you code anything else. All right, real quick. So let's look at like agent systems. Like I think this is we'll go over actually this is like you were talking about content stuff. It's like why agent systems suck. Everybody else is whack, that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. You can look at AutoGen, right? Why do I talk trash? Well, that's the whole thing. We can get into the Sean talking trash about other people's agent frameworks. Real quick, let me see. Somebody sent me a message. Is it like a side message I shouldn't show on screen? Let's take a look. Okay, somebody. Oh, dope. Nice. Oh yeah, so we're working on our Drake. I got a friend of mine who's working on the Drake stuff. Awesome. I am live on stream if you want to shout out your services. Anyway, this stuff is garbage. Why? Why is it garbage? Boom. All your papers, garbage. Can't fuck with me. So excuse my language. Anyway, why can't they mess with me? Look at theirs. Wow. 3 agents, 4 agents. Oh my God, my mind's blown. There's no way that we could do this many agents in a system. I mean, that's too many. Like they're already pushing the limits. Let's try and find the most agents that they have in a single system. So here it's interesting, finite state machine graph. So people are, pi autogen, people are starting. Okay, so even in here, 2 agents, you have to use GPT-4. And so they have 5 agents in their system. Great. Okay, now they're growing. And the teams. Okay, so here we have super huge prompt, right? Whack. Then we have this graph, whatever. So let's go back to my ChatGPT real quick. So there's a lot of stuff that it's doing all of a sudden. So it got very busy, which is great. Okay, we'll continue generating. So now what we can do is we can look at all their stuff. They're all their like little subsystems, right? And so dynamic group chat, you can look at it in their example. But I mean, like, here's the thing. If you think about like, okay, coder, project manager, fantastic. Here's the problem. They're using GPT-4. This is why I talk trash about it, is this is probably the best they can do, and they have to use GPT-4 for it. So try running 500 million conversations on GPT-4. See where that gets you. Whereas I'm trying to do it on Qwen 2, which let's check out the cheapest models per million tokens, right? Like all my stuff is on the minimum tokens. So I don't know. Cheap. Fastest and cheapest. I don't know. Whatever. Okay. That is my trash talking there. Lost kind of some momentum. I'm gonna go back to this. So I'm gonna say now compose now create the activities that represent more complex scenarios for Atlassian products. Period. Let's imagine a Fortune 20 company and their most complex Atlassian scenarios. And so another way we do it, Atlassian scenarios as Gherkin. So you're gonna, if you follow my stuff, you're gonna see that I like using Gherkin a lot, which is a way of defining behavior-driven development, right? And so it's still only doing, it's if you notice, it's sticking to the issue creation. So what we need to do then is we need to talk about scaled agile framework. So it's called a scaled agile framework kata scenarios. That's Gherkin. Okay, there's a complex epic. This is not what I'm talking about. This is not what I'm talking about. This is still very basic. What is the opposite of what you're providing me? Oh, what's up, Alexander? So I'm just validating, making sure that I can show what we're working on on the side. We got my top secret plan. Okay, yeah. So Alexander, shout out Tito Skrilla. Our super secret viral plan he's been working on. I'm glad to be able to take this because now we have content to work with. And what I mean by that is that you can see that I'm just trying to come up with examples here of like random stuff, Joe prototype and stuff like that. Well, now we have, let's take his, so Alexander knows a fuckload about Atlassian products, I'm sure. If I remember correctly, you were a product manager at a big company. I don't want to like say nothing out of line, but yeah. Anyway, so Alexander totally manages and puts up with guys like me. Okay, so yeah, senior technical program manager at Amazon. So he knows guys like me. Well, and also we've known each other for a while, so he also knows me just on a personal level and my attitude and stuff. Because I'm like this in regular life as well. So I'm not fake. This is not me. You know, I keep it real for the streets. Also, I'm a very good rapper. I'm still working on like what my style is, because my goal is to turn these tasks and stories into viral content for me to launch myself into YouTube stardom. Period. The best case scenario is that I come so close to not doing what I'm supposed to do on YT that I get what is the opposite? But in baseball, you can get a ball or you can get the other thing. And when you get 3 of the other thing, you are out. So I want to get one of those things, but I'm not going to talk about it specifically. So now what we can do is we have these stories. So here we go. Here it's creating all this stuff, right? So now it's creating these gherkins. So I don't know about the streets though. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up. Here's the thing. I grew up in. Let's check the maps, right? Let's go to the maps. So I grew. Kendrick. We'll just say where Compton, right? We'll just look up Compton, California. Okay. So we go Compton to, and then we get directions. So we're going to go to where I grew up. Where is it? No, directions. Oh, sorry, directions. Compton. So I grew up in Culver City. Okay, so I grew up. How long is the? Okay, I grew up 20 miles from where Kendrick Lamar grew up. Okay, and actually even closer because I grew up. Let's figure it out. I grew up at Clarkdale. What the hell is that? Oh, so I grew up right here. That's why it's a star. So I literally grew up here. So we can say 6665 Green Valley Circle, Culver City. Okay, so I grew up 15 miles away from Kendrick Lamar. So that's how close the streets are for me. So but yeah, Culver City is definitely different than Compton. Anyway, back to our viral plans. So we go to here. So here's the thing, right? Like what I want to do is now let's imagine that the agent swarm is simulating doing all of this work for Drake, because I want it to look like when the agents are done inserting all of the API calls, that it's an entire Atlassian, Fortune 20 company designed for Drake ghostwriters and stuff. Does that make sense? So now, okay, so here we go. We got our clients. Drake workflow. See? The madness begins. So then we can go to DSPy typed predictors, and we can just go to here and say, okay, now we're going to go here and we're going to say, now create the typed predictors to generate Drake lyrics. All right, so here we are. We're provided theme. Theme: apology and regret, emotional and reflective. Perfect. So actually, let's run this code real quick. So actually, I'll put this on the side. So, oh yeah, Dr. Vogel's in Germany. Like, he is a madman. But thanks for showing up, man. I appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing your code and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Okay. So we got our Drake's lyrics, because I mean, this is the moment of truth. It's all coming together. David, Alexander, Sean, you guys in the audience, you won, Chris, other people. Just put your names in the chat so that I can, because I'm trying to learn people's names. So put your names in the chat if you want me to shout you out, and your name, that kind of stuff. So I always do experiments folder. So we're going to do a Python file of Drake lyrics. Oh, you know what we can do, David? The conspiracy goes even deeper. We can go into PyPI and commit the Drake lyrics generator to the repository, and then we can go we can go to GitHub and post the Drake lyrics generator. So we can like totally make the paper trail look legitimate.
I've never heard of anybody using their influence on GitHub to do stuff like this. That might be a first.
Oh yeah. Well, see, that's the thing about me and all this stuff is I'm thinking about this all from the perspective of like MySpace back in 2006. So this is like a publicity stunt from like back then. All right. So we do this. We need to initialize dspy init dspy ol. This will actually generate the lyrics for us, and let's create a main function. Oh yeah, that has the init already in it. So we'll just grab this and we'll do this. I bet you guys didn't think that you're going to actually be getting like programming lessons and stuff. Let's see if this works. My IDE is running low on memory. All right. I have 48 gigabytes of memory and I'm still perfect. All right. So there you go. But there's more. I'm not going to, I do my own stuff. So I'm not, but we need to do, see, this is where it gets perfect. Now what we need to do is we need to do a Kendrick Lamar so that they can battle. So now we will also do, okay. So Drake needs to workshop and sharpen his raps in order to win the battle that he's very obviously losing right now. So we need to have a Kendrick Lamar set of generators, and then we need to have a judge, period. Snoop Dogg. Can be a swarm. So have judges. So Simon Cowell, Taylor Swift, Snoop Dogg, and let's just throw in Tupac. Why not? Actually, that'd probably get us in trouble. So we'll leave Tupac out. 3-pack. So 3-pack. 3-pack. So okay. How awesome is this? So full implementation in one script. Bet you guys didn't think you were going to be seeing this. See, this is what technology is supposed to be used for. Everybody else is doing blog articles or paper citations. I mean, this is really groundbreaking work. Okay. Comprehensive implementation. Let's just grab it. Let's see. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to show it the actual framework. So we're going to show it the main function. So we're going to give it, because I don't want it to have to keep doing the main function and stuff like that. So I have my own framework as well. So I need to have the modifications made to match this. Just reply with the correct class with all of the different judges and systems, etc.
Yeah, we need to get some good filler for when things are generating.
Okay. Well, I mean, I mean, honestly, like I know that's but this is keeping it real. This is the
Sure.
streets.
Yeah.
This is except for the me talking part. Just imagine me doing this for hours. I've been doing what you're watching now for a year and a half, or just like a year and a half with nobody watching. And so this is why I make the statements that I make, is because I know I can do stuff like this. So let's run it. Let's see what happens. So to kind of go through what's going on is okay, here we go. So we got, so we had the lyrics generating. Okay, so we had, so here we go, Drake's lyrics, right? And then we have, where's Kendrick? Okay, it didn't work. No, I mean, is Kendrick in here? Oh yeah, here's Kendrick's. In the streets we clash. Steel meets fury, a war of words unleashed. Battle lines drawn, eyes ablaze. In this aggressive dance, no peace is reached. You know what's funny, actually, I realized is the reason why it sounds like this is because it's using a Chinese language model. That's what's happening. This is like the fists fly like thunder, echoes of conflict rippling through the air. Each verse a strike, every line a punch. We stand tall and declare. So I can say it more as a voice. So let's go to speech to text. Speech to text. No, not transcribing. What the hell? Okay, never mind. Type with your voice. Use voice typing. Sorry, I mean text to speech. I had it backwards. Text to speech. All right. Davis. Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry. I guess we're so close anyway. One truth. That's right. My favorite lyric: process finished with exit code 1. All right. I think
Okay, we need
did
to
it.
end the stream. Do you have a fun way to end this? Like, we need something consistent between every bit. You want to like play a game of Snake or something? I know we can track how good you get at Snake as we do these streams.
Or we could just end it with process finished with exit code 1.
Honestly, that works too.
And I did the emoji.
Yeah, and then we'll make that the thumbnail.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, we got the glasses. Where did the glasses go? Oh well, I've had to clean up the office. Oh, we could do this. I've got oh well, we can do this. I have these like I can do this. I always do like the weird faces.
Yeah, let's do something like this.
We got that. Or
Oh, okay, that one's pretty good.
we got this one.
I got it just as you were taking it off. That was pretty good. Yeah, no, I think I got it.
Okay, cool. Yep. All right. So yeah,
I don't know how happy you'll be about it, but yeah, it's there.
This is all. Who cares, right? Like the thing about these things is that, for instance, you didn't start watching your favorite streamer until they had already streamed like 1,000 videos, right? Mm-hmm. So we just need to get from this is stream what? Well, this is the second week of live code demos, and I mean we ended it with, in this battleground of words and wills, only one truth survives. Like we did it. We battled Drake and Kendrick in Chinese rap. There you go. All right.
Let's go. I'll upload this thumbnail right after.
Cool.
But yeah.
All right. See you, everybody.
Perfect.
Let me turn off the YouTube.
Yeah.